who I would select if I was the All Blacks coaches to play first five or fly half for the All Blacks, especially to start with against Ireland, leading on to the World Cup next year. My selection would... Hello and welcome back to the Sports Booth YouTube channel. My name is Luke, and today we're going to be looking at the topic of Barrett or Milanga. Now, the reason this is kind of started and the reason I'm making this video is I posted the form team that you'll be seeing right now of the All Black side of the Super Rugby Pacific competition. So this is what I thought the team throughout Super Rugby Pacific was the form side who had played the best and deserved an All Blacks cap. If you were just picking basically just off form, not off past experience, anything like that, just off form from the season. Now, the biggest question was, A, where was Milanga? And to be fair, I probably should have put him on the reserves. But B, the second question was then Barrett or Milanga. Like, who do we decide when we're picking those two players? So, kind of thought, let's delve a bit deeper, because a lot of the questions were like, Milanga's had Barrett covered. Milanga's definitely the best first five. Then I put up the poll, and as you'll see in our awards video coming up, that it was actually Barrett that was voted the half of the year. So stuff started ticking through my mind, and I was like, you know what? I want to get to the bottom of this. I want to see who the better player is, or what we can see from the facts and the numbers. Now, the big things I wanted to look at was A, their stats, which we'll go into, from their Super Rugby careers. And what I've done is I've taken 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2022. We'll just forget about that brief period of COVID and kind of Barrett wanting to go over to Japan and leave us. But yeah, we'll just focus on that 2016 when Milanga started to really shine, and that period there for Barrett as well. So 2016 to 2019 and the season included, looking at all the stats, breaking that down. And then looking into kind of what I thought, and what always been my excuse when people hit me with the Milanga argument, is look at his team and the amount of All Blacks he's playing with, the level he is playing with around him. Could he do that at another team? And I wanted to see if this statement was actually true. Like, in my head, I go, Milanga's playing with a better group of players, playing with better All Blacks, but I had to work that out. I had to find that out and decide if that was actually true, or it was just me talking about a bunch of shit, and really, Milanga is just a better player. But let's start off with the stats. So now you're going to see a graphic pop up on the screen, and basically what it's going to be saying is all of the stats with their played, their wins, tries, try assists, tackles, tackle percentage, tackle breaks, clean breaks, meters, throughout the seasons that we talked about, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2022. So obviously in those 19-16, between 19 and 16, Barrett with the Hurricanes, last season with the Blues, and throughout Milanga with Crusaders. Now, what I was kind of trying to figure out is what type of player they are and what are these stats telling us. So it was actually very interesting. Now, all of these stats were taken off Rugby Pass. So it's kind of, I felt that was the fairest way until I got to 2022. And then I saw Rugby Pass's stats for 2022, and both of them had run for like 200 metres, and I said, that's not right. That doesn't seem right. That can't be right. So what does a good man like myself do rather than just going with what Rugby Pass says? I said, you know what? I'm going to go into each game on the Super Rugby website, calculate all of their stats, and come up with this equation. So when you're looking at these 2022 stats, you will see that is actually me going into the Super Rugby site and pulling the stats for each game and adding it all up. So if we look at this year, because I really want to start focusing on this year, and then I'm going to kind of do look at the averages. This year, we saw a very similar amount of games and wins, obviously. So they both kind of got off to a slow start. Obviously, Milanga had a break at the start, and Barrett came off a couple of injury concerns. So they played similar games, Barrett with 11, Milanga with 12. Both won 10. Now, this is where it kind of gets interesting. Barrett outscored Milanga 5-1. Both set up similar assists, 6-7. Both actually made less tackles than I thought. So Barrett at 42, Milanga at 55. Then the tackle percentage for Barrett was actually a bit higher at 79 compared to 74. And this is where it gets interesting. Now, what we actually saw, and even using Rugby Pass's stats, sticks to this equation that Milanga just breaks more tackles or beats more defenders. So in the stats, he got 54 this year compared to Barrett's 31. But the difference is Barrett actually makes more clean breaks. Well, this year he did at least compared to Milanga. So So Barrett had 9, whereas we see Milanga with 7. And then the meters in Barrett's argument to 555 to 541. But very similar stats when we look at it all. And it made me go, as much as, again, I picked Barrett in my form team, so many people around the league, and even when we're looking at our MVP award, have selected Barrett over Milanga, where the stats aren't saying that his season was that much, statistically better than what Milanga was. So now if we go to kind of breaking these stats down throughout the years, so 2016 to 2019 and including this one. Now in Rugby Pass, I think works out their stats slightly different. I don't know what a try assist comes under, their meters and stuff, like how they calculate that. But whatever, they've got the data and that's the only place I could find it. So I thought as long as I'm pulling it from both the same place, that works really well. So we look at averages now, and I'm going to put up another graphic that shows kind of the averages and kind of how I've done it. Barrett plays on average 14.4 versus Richie Milanga's 13.8. Now, Milanga's been more successful in this time with 86% win percentage versus 76% for Barrett. And then we kind of get into the stats and their specific stats. So Barrett, 5.4 tries versus Milanga's 3.8. Try assist is pretty even, 15.8 for Barrett, 16.6 for Milanga. 72 to 70 tackles per season. 79% for Barrett versus 75 for Milanga. Then tackle breaks, which I kind of stated was the big one, that Milanga definitely leads this category. He is able to break tackles, and I didn't realise how, everyone kind of says his running game, but I didn't realise how good of a tackle breaker he was until I kind of did these stats where he sits at 48.4 versus Barrett's 29 per season. Then clean breaks, very similar again, 12.2 for Barrett, 14.6 for Milanga. And then meters, where you've got 701 meters for Barrett versus 606 for Milanga. So that's Barrett's clear stat is his actual meters gained versus Milanga's clear stat, which is his tackle breaks or defenders beaten. So that's kind of where they sit around. I also did kicking percentage. You won't see it on the statistic graph I pull up, but it's 77 to Barrett, 75 to Milanga. I don't think it's too much different, and this year was hard to tell when Barrett wasn't really kicking goals. So kind of looking at these, I don't think there's a clear, distinct winner in the stats. If anything, I'd probably lean on the side of Milanga just slightly with his statistical advantage and his tackle breaking. I think that's a massive key kind of element there. Everywhere else you can kind of say, yeah, Barrett defensive-wise maybe a little bit better, but, also being able to score tries is Barrett's kind of key there as well. Now, what I kind of now go is, yeah, okay, I can see everyone's arguments for Milanga, but I want to raise you the point that he's played with better players. So then you're going to see this next graph. Now, this is where my statistical mind kind of started to go into the universe of numbers and decisions and stuff here. So to break this down, it is going to be a little bit confusing, but this is the way I kind of did it. I basically went through and pulled from Wikipedia the squads from 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2022, and all the players that played there. So every single player from the Hurricanes in 2016 to 2019 that played with Barrett, and the same, and then 22 for the Blues, and the same for Milanga in that time for the Crusaders. Now, in that season, if they were ever selected or played for the All Blacks during that season, they were given 1 point. So they were given 1 point. They're considered an All Black standard of player. What I then did was work out kind of a statistical decision for players who are going to be future All Blacks who didn't play that round, but I think made enough of an impact, or international players of other calibre, or past All Blacks. So someone might have played, for the All Blacks in 2016, 2017, wasn't selected in 2018. So I'm going to give you some examples of that. So a good one, Jamison Gibson-Park played for the Hurricanes in 2016, the season they won. He wasn't an All Black and actually went on to become an Irish rugby player in 2022. So I've given him a 0.25 kind of rating there. So he was probably making an impact there for the Hurricanes enough to deserve their rating. Same goes with a player like Corey Jane, didn't make the All Blacks in 2016, but was at a calibre level of player to be able to play in that level. Then someone as well, an example, Brad Shields, throughout all his career for the Hurricanes, was there or thereabouts an international calibre player, and we see that because he goes on to become an All Black, an English rugby player when he's playing over in England. A good example, kind of from this year, for Beauden Barrett's is Luke Romano. So obviously an All Black has been around that system. I gave him a 0.5. So they're not one play, they don't get 1 point because they weren't a cap or anything like that. They weren't selected. They aren't going to play, but they have been in and around that system just to make it a bit more fair to go, just because someone didn't get selected for that All Blacks doesn't mean that there's not a level of high professional ability around Barrett. If we look at some examples for Richie Milanga, it was Wyatt Crockett and kind of Owen Franks were those ones that had been All Blacks and then didn't get selected. So Wyatt Crockett in 2018, I believe, retired from the All Blacks, and Owen Franks the next year didn't get selected for the All Blacks. But those two were both still high caliber players playing for the Crusaders that year, so they got 0.5 points. An example of where I went, another 0.5 is Pablo Matera in this year for the Crusaders, and obviously an international player. And Pete Summer, when he played, I think I gave him a 0.25 for his couple of years. Now, there are players I have kind of decided not to give points to, even though they have played for the All Blacks at certain times. So Brent Cameron was one, just because I don't think that is fair to put to Milanga, because the chances they shared the field too much wouldn't have been too high as much as there. Also, I know I've given one for Mitch Drummond when he was an All Black, but around there he's just got 0.25. So he's still adding to that level of, expected high ability around there. So that's kind of, I know it sounds confusing, but that's kind of how I felt like it was fair enough to go, okay, we've got all the All Blacks, but there's also players in positions with the ability to change a game, and I wanted to see how they also had an effect without, having them have a full rating. So it was between 0.25, 0.5 and 1. So All Blacks selected, 1 point. Anyone like past or present, 0.5, and then around about 0.25. So this is where we see, was I right? Was I right? Has Milanga played with better players? Is that why he's got better stats? Does he deserve it? Is Barrett just been unlucky with the teams he's played with? So on and so forth. You'll now see the graph. You'll see the statistics there. So for Barrett, 47.5 total of international players in squad. Again, that's because I've gone with the point system versus Milanga was 70. So of the squad, because then I added up every single member who had played in that squad, 24% of Barrett's squad teammates had been at an international level throughout his whole time playing footy in that 2016, 2019 and 2022. Milanga, on the other hand, 33%. Then if we look at season by season, I know it says All Blacks there with their little asterisks, but that's because it's international players. Couldn't fit that into the graph. But yes, in 2016, 8.5 versus 12. 2017, 9 versus 14.75. 2018, 11 versus 16.5. 2019, 8 against 13.75. And then lastly, this year, 11 versus 13. Which makes me very interested, because if we look at all of those numbers, the closest he has been with the squad he has had with Barrett is this year, where they were two players kind of different that were selected or at those standards that I kind of gave them. That, to me, is a massive signal is, yes, Milanga has played with better players. I don't think we can doubt that. A couple of the comments saying that, Milanga bundled Barrett out of the playoffs. I think more the Crusaders bundled the Hurricanes. As a Hurricanes fan, that is hard to say, out of the playoffs. Milanga's played with better players throughout Super Rugby. When we're looking at Super Rugby and who's had the better career over those last, those 5 years we're comparing, it's probably been Milanga. But to say again that they're better players, it's just so tight when you look at it. To say what Barrett's done with the lesser squad really is a fantastic testimony to him. To say what Milanga's been able to do with his squad is also a fantastic testimony. Like, say the roles were reversed, could we say Barrett's doing as well as Milanga? And could we see Milanga is doing as well as Barrett? It's one of those what if Barrett was, in the Crusaders and Milanga was in the Hurricanes for a while there. We'll never know, but just to take it, stat by stat and to say, yes, this is an argument and it's a valid argument. The team that Milanga has played for has always probably been better than Barrett's. Is Milanga making that team better? The stats show that, they're very similar players. So when we're looking at this question, I think it's an either, like we are so lucky to be gifted with two of talented first fives that I don't think you can make a wrong selection here. But let's finish off with my final point of who I would select if I was the All Blacks coaches to play first five or fly half for the All Blacks, especially to start with against Ireland, leading on to the World Cup next year. My selection would be Richie Milanga. Now, the reason I say that is I think Barrett's utility off the bench is a big talking point. It would mean we could most likely not have to have a backup fullback or anything like that, have players that can move. It would just be that. I also think the impact that Barrett can bring from the bench is greater. So I'm not saying that Milanga is the better player. All I'm saying is I think the impact that Barrett can bring off the bench would be greater. But again, it's a 50-50 choice just about looking at all the stats and all the numbers. And I would love to hear what you think. Who do you think the All Blacks should be selecting? Who do you think, is the better player? Let me know. Write down in the comments. For right now, I will leave you with this. They are both better than any Australian fly half. Peace.